The U.S. President's job is the hardest management job in the world. Their requirements put business executives to shame. I start by going through a quick overview of the model. As with all models, the trade-off is speed versus model accuracy. Next, I will show the components of the model that apply to the U.S. President. This is where the complexity comes into play with the model. Lastly, I will give a summary presentation to help individuals understand what is required and needed for a successful presidency. Let's start with an explanation of the model. The model has two components. Both of them have to do with knobs. The first component is the size of the knob. That is a representation of how important the knob is. As an example, the knob representing our economy, it would be a very large size. Yet the size of the knob representing, quote, world charity distributions, unquote, would be much smaller. This gives the president an opportunity to rank their priorities from most to least important. This all by itself would require a lot of effort in decision making. The second characteristic of the knob is its range and how much you can turn the knob. This represents the president's authority and ability to influence. For instance, the president would have a very high authority and ability to influence the administration of benefits for all national disasters. Now, the president does not have complete authority, as Congress must allocate the funds. On the other hand, the president may not have much authority or influence over each Senate and House bill. This might be because not everything the House and Senate does would be important to the president. Next, I will go through a partial list of presidential knobs as an example of what could be put into the model. This is a fairly large list, and I don't think I need to go through each one, but I will discuss some of the important ones as an example. The first example is, quote, manage the U.S. economy to growth and prosperity, unquote. Let me give you an example of how Joe Biden used this. Joe Biden inherited an economy that an extremely high percentage of economists predicted would go into recession. To understand this, we have to talk about some sub-knobs. A sub-knob to the economy knob might be bills passed to stimulate the economy. Another sub-knob could be overall government spending. Another sub-knob could be managing other world leaders to stimulate their growth. This knob could be very well the largest knob the president has. Another knob to be used as an example is, quote, responsibility and fair management of each U.S. territory, unquote. This could be a middle-sized knob for the president. A challenge is the meaning of responsible and fair management. The reason this is a challenge is that there are a lot of other knobs used to manage spending. Spending would be a very important sub-knob for this category. There is a push and pull relationship between all of the knobs, and that is the question of where to spend money. Each knob's performance could be improved by spending more money. However, another example of a knob that could affect our responsibility to U.S. territories is presidential travel to U.S. territories, which can have a decent effect on fairness. At this time, I'd like to make a point. Every presidential knob I have listed has a fair amount of importance to fairly large constituents. President Obama once said that he was never asked to solve easy problems. He was only asked to solve hard problems. The president has authority over all the knobs and must decide which are the most important and which are the least important, knowing that all are important. The last knob I will discuss is, quote, understand and respond to world disturbances for U.S. benefit, unquote. I picked this knob because it's very complex and sometimes hard to predict. I will give you a few sub-knobs to highlight the complexity of this knob. One sub-knob could be what we want to accomplish to our benefit in the Russia versus Ukraine war. We could have a sub-knob that is about weakening Russia by having them spend a huge amount of money on their war, which will very negatively impact their economy and their ability to start wars elsewhere. We could accomplish this sub-knob issue by spending a relatively paltry amount of money to support Ukraine. Ukraine is fighting a proxy war for us where we have no soldiers in the game, and yet the more money we give Ukraine, the farther Russia goes down their financial rat hole. The war between Russia and Ukraine is but one of the world disturbances. There are disturbances in the Middle East, there are disturbances in Africa, there are disturbances in South America. Each disturbance has its own sub-knob. Some of these sub-knobs are very large and some are very small. However, one of the goals of each of these knobs is to improve our position in the world. Lastly, I have a relatively extensive summary to discuss with you. The first point I want to make is that the president's job is extremely onerous. The size and range of their knobs are continually changing. The president can improve his performance by how well he can hire extremely intelligent and capable knob managers. Even with all the capable knob manager, it still requires the president to have the intelligence and make the hard and correct decision. Because the size and range of the knobs are continuously changing, the president must have the mental capacity to manage that situation. This not only requires extreme intelligence, but empathy for all U.S. citizens, whether in the 50 states or our territories. For every decision a president makes, he is creating winners and losers. That is just one of the challenges facing the president. This is why, frankly, a president should be in very good physical shape. This facilitates good decision-making and superior management. Each president must be guided by an extremely good decision-making process. Also, it would help if fundamentally they were a good person with a strong moral compass. That would be used to guide them to making the best decision. This presentation just cuts across the surface of the job of the U.S. president. There is no harder job in the world, as you can tell by the parade of presidents starting the presidency with their wonderful natural hair color and ending the presidency with gray hair. The president could be able to run any business in the world.